So I guess everything is working. So hello everyone to stream, if anyone is watching. Today I will be doing some more vehicles. I wanted to do some motorbikes, but then I thought I will do some tanks or something like this because I really like to draw tanks. So I guess I will explain some things basing on the tanks, and then yeah, that's pretty much all. And I yeah, so everything is working. So previously I did these three guys, so yeah, that's pretty much all. So for the tanks, for the most basic things, I would like to start with some explanation what I will be doing. So basically why tanks are cool is because they are quite easy to draw, and the elements they are made of are also quite easy to understand, because pretty much everything that you need to know about some tanks is the fact that they are made out of boxes. So more or less every single tank is just some boxes. So for example, the main body more or less can be compressed to the box. The things with the wheels, I have no idea how it's called, is pretty much like a box. Now I'm drawing from the side. That is like cut in here and cut in here. So this part is not in here and it's rounded in well, it's rounded in here and it's rounded in here, and you have all the wheels and everything happening like inside. Maybe it's not the proper like 100 proper shape, but this is the general idea. So you have if you have a box, you pretty much can like draw a tank based on the boxes. So for example, if I were to add a box in here, so let's say we would like to add something a little bit taller. Oh, a little bit taller to here. And I'm really only following a really basic perspective setup. It's nothing too fancy. Sometimes you may get some lines to overlap. Also, everything is cool with it. I am also using shift lines, so the lines are straight. So feel free to use them if Photoshop allows you to do so. You can use it, made to help you. So if you have a box, like in here, it's a little bit clunky, but that will do for the explanation. Then the only thing you need to really do is to cut down the geometry accordingly to the size and the shape that you have in here. So this is pretty much the basic idea of how you draw a tank. And the second really interesting thing with the tanks is the cannon, because it might be a little bit more like less intuitive how to draw a cannon that is tilted, but also this is quite easy thing to do, because for example, if you have any sort of a plane, so let's say this is our base plane, we will like mark where is the middle. Basically, if you want to draw a cannon that is going upward, you just need to like make for yourself a line that will help you with this type of thing. Like make a line in here, select a point. So for example, let's say this will be the end of our cannon, and if the cannon, for example, starts in here, it will simply connect like this. So if we were to add some thickness to it, then more or less the cannon will look like this. And the only thing that you really need to remember while drawing like this type of things, this type of shapes, is if you are drawing an ellipse. So for example, if you have a long axis and a short axis, it's like 90 degrees between them and they are exactly in the middle in here, it will tell you what is the direction of your cylinder. So pretty much the whole cylinder, the whole like cannon will go accordingly to the short axis. This is one ugly ellipse, but yeah, something like this. And of course the part that you will not see. So pretty much this is everything you really need to know about drawing tanks. And I guess if you were to like draw the same theme, just keep using this type of stuff because it will be way easier for you. And also what is really cool about some tanks is usually they are a bit easier to draw, because like vast majority of photos are like made in a really like perspective with a really with vanishing points put really far away from each other, so it's not really a dynamic shot. So pretty much almost every single thing you can draw will be parallel to the horizon line. So if you have like a horizon line, then pretty much every single thing will be almost parallel. Maybe like the wheels on the bottom part will be a bit less parallel, but yeah, that's pretty much all. But if you were to like include the vanishing points close to each other, just remember you will get a really heavy distortion. So let's erase this guy from here. So if we were to draw in this type of a perspective, as you can see, it will be really distorted. So that's pretty much like all you really need to know to start drawing tanks. For example, this will be our cannon. So this could be how the cannon looks like in this type of a perspective. Also, you have this type of a photo in here. So this is a little bit more dynamic shot, and this is why this cannon is like really distorted and it's like changing the thickness, like the closer it is to us, while this tank is not really changing it. Like this cannon is not changing a thickness because the vanishing points are further away each other. But I guess I will go with this guy. I really like how the perspective is put in this one, so I will simply try to draw this guy. Also, if anyone has any comments or something like this, or would like to know something about like a certain topic, feel free to ask. I will try to answer the best I can. So basically with this guy, I will start with the front line. So I will try to draw a box for this one. As previously, I'm not really concerned about proportions that much. I just want to draw something that will look like a tank more or less. But if something will be slightly off, it won't really matter for me. So I think it's a good like attitude to go with the drawing, because when you are like studying, when you are doing like this like simple study sketches and everything, then there's really no need to stress about anything. So it will only make it like drawing more pleasant for you. So just remember to make it fun if you are struggling with drawing with something like this. So yeah, and starting with the box is, as I said previously, is a really cool thing to do, because it pretty much allows you to like understand the geometry way better, because like you can put it in the box. I always say, if you can put something in the box, just imagine how you will cut the box to achieve the shape of the thing that you put in the box in this case. And it will, with some time, get easier for you to understand how the box can affect your drawing, because it's pretty much like a perspective guide. So yeah, that's pretty much all. And I guess I will like make this tank firstly as a copy, more or less. So I will try to emulate what I see on the left on the screen, and then I will try to draw it from another angle, so I will be able to see if I understand the geometry. Because if you are studying vehicles, it's a good idea is to like test yourself if you know what like you are drawing. And because I have not been drawing today that much, I feel a bit stiff with all the lines and everything, so I will try to like loosen up a bit, and the more I will draw, the easier it will get. So the first tank will probably go a little slower, but the second and maybe the third one, we will see how long it will take. It should like be way quicker. So yeah, that's pretty much all that you need to know. And sometimes adding some cross-section lines is a helpful thing, because it allows you to like better understand the geometry. For example, the part on the front, I pretty much know that it looks more or less like this. This is the sort of a plane that I am working with, so adding those lines in here might be helpful for the future use. And as previously, I also want to draw this guy with like the inks, something that will look like inks. So later I will try to like do this thing, do the shading thing to it. And the only problem that you might like, I mean, you can encounter a lot of different problems while you are like drawing this type of geometries, is not really seeing the top and the bottom part of the geometries. For example, if I'm seeing the top of this tank, it's really more like a shape. If I were to draw it from the top, I will have like way easier time like understanding the length and everything of pretty much every single geometry, because I will see it in a better manner. Later when I will try to draw some sort of a tank, like maybe from the imagination in a different like geometrical scenario, I will show you what I really mean by it. Because, or maybe I will do this now, so oh yeah, okay, so I will only explain the thing with the boxes, and then I will answer your question. And hello, Lil Shake. So yeah, basically, if you are drawing like a box like this, it's quite easy to see like the dimension of the top and the dimension of the bottom. But if I were to draw, and pretty much the front and the back plan and every single plan of the box, so it's a little bit clunky, but it is like here. But if I were to draw the same box like from the front without any type of a perspective, or almost with no perspective, then a lot of guessing is happening in the top and in the bottom of the box. So this is why it might get a little bit harder to understand the geometry from the photo like this. But for the copying, it's, in my opinion, it's way easier. And for your question, can you suggest exercises? Basically, the best exercise, in my opinion, to get good quickly while drawing pretty much anything, especially on paper, is just practicing straight lines. So just sit and try to like draw a lot of parallel lines to each other, make some points and try to connect them. So you will pretty much train your arm to draw like the most basic things, because everything that is in here is pretty much like a combination of straight lines. Because even like if you have an arc, then if I do something like this, like several straight lines, it will kind of create an arc in here. So you can create an arc with straight lines. So basically the first thing are the straight lines. And then I think you should draw as many boxes as possible. So pretty much, as I said like earlier, you can put everything in a box. So it is like a really nice guide for drawing pretty much everything. So if you put a chair in the box, for example, let's do it in here. Like drawing a chair without a guide might be a bit harder, but if you have like a reference, like point of reference, so for example, let's say this is our chair, then I don't really need to think about the perspective. I only fill the gaps in the design, and if I need like additional parts, I will add it accordingly to the perspective. But one of the best things that you can do, like outside of the geometry studies and drawing all the perspective, is to read a book called Perspective Made As Easy by Ernest R. Norling. And if you go through this book, and you will understand every single thing that is happening in this book, because it's pretty straightforward. It's quite easy book to understand. In my opinion, you should go with the books like written by Scott Robertson. It's called How to Draw. How to Draw by Scott Robertson. These are like pretty much the only two books you might like ever need, because like this one really nicely explains the topic, and the second one pretty much shows you all the exercises you can do and shows you how to practice. So I guess if you can train for a long time, like if you're really like determined to train, then these two books will be more than enough to learn how to draw. And For the Asian and South Asian architecture, it does not really matter what type of architecture you will be drawing and practicing on. Like, I guess Romanesque type of architecture with all the old churches and everything is the easiest one to draw because it's like pretty much huge blocks, like, and that's pretty much all. Like, there's no finesse to it. Like, it's basically a blocks, like a simple geometry shapes. But I guess learning everything from the like Asian architecture might be a bit harder because then you have to worry about a lot of different geometries, and basically the geometry is a bit more complex in those type of architectures. So I think I will start with some simpler times for the architecture, especially like early European, like churches and all of this type of stuff. And later you can go for like the Gothic cathedrals and everything, so you will have like a better understanding of what is really going on in the drawing. But yeah, I guess like drawing straight lines at the beginning is actually one of the best exercises that you can pretty much do, like all day. So yeah, I hope this like answers your question. And also remember to use some references because it's really hard to practice drawing without references. If you have like Photoshop or something like this, then also try to like study some different photos. So basically try to see what and how the things are looking and just try to like observe the things around you. So for example, the ellipses are the best example to observe because you will like immediately understand them better if you just practice like drawing them and like try to understand them through the photographs, for example. So basically just draw like a long and a short axis everywhere to just see what angle the ellipse has. So yeah. And again, for the tongue that I am doing right now, I'm just trying to like draw some basic shapes, and that's pretty much all in terms of like the topic being hard. For the ellipses, you can draw like one and just then duplicate it. I guess I will do so. In this type of shot, even the proportions of the ellipse won't change that much. Like the ellipse in the back will be only slightly smaller, but I won't really worry about it. I will just place some wheels pretty much like this. And yeah. Thanks a lot. And good luck in learning how to draw. Like, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask them here in the comments. I said it previously, like I'm planning to make some sort of a series where I explain all the basics of the perspective and everything, so maybe soon it will happen. I only need to organize some stuff and to see how... Yeah, I pretty much only need to organize some stuff. And I guess I will most likely stream those type of like trainings and exercises and everything, so I can maybe stay tuned or something like this. But yeah. And also what I'm doing right now with the tank is I'm building all the basic blocks, so I'm not trying to focus on unnecessary details. I'm only trying to build like a basic geometry, like a basic mesh to fill it with the geometry later. And there is this really cool looking cannon on top of it. So it's like wings parts. Yeah, even for the cannon, it's pretty much like a box with the sides slightly like skewed to the top, without a top and a bottom part. So that's pretty much all. And with this type of a detail that you are seeing in here, Remember, like, you don't really need to draw every single thing. Like, you don't need to be a pixel perfect type of a guy. Sometimes you only need to suggest something, especially later when I will be adding some like shading, like inking the drawing. Then it will be even more about making a shape that looks kind of cool instead of like drawing everything pixel perfect. Because like most likely if you are going to paint it or illustrate it somehow, most likely you won't be drawing every single thing. Most likely you'll be trying to create an illusion, yeah, like pretty much an illusion of the things that you are planning to draw. So all the shapes and everything will be made with light and shadow. Adding this guy. Yeah. Also in the shot like here, like you can have a general understanding what is happening in there, but like a toy view of a tank, I don't have like this type of a view in here, but later I will try to find a photo like this. Might be even like easier to draw. Also, I will show you how you can analyze the geometry later of the thing that you are going to draw. So, but I will need only to like search for a photo that will be good enough for it. And yeah, and then here will be this soldier type of a thingy. Yeah, so for the basics, this is pretty much all. Like all the general shapes are in here. The only thing I should really only now like care about is actually drawing all the small details, because the details like will do the thing. Like because of details it will look okay or not okay. So yeah, pretty much the hard part is done. And also what is beautiful in Adobe Photoshop, I can like rework every single thing that I don't like. So if I like say I don't think this looks like properly drawn, I can always like skew it, distort it, erase it. So yeah, this is kinda nice. The problem with drawing in the Photoshop is actually it's kinda, in my opinion, a bit harder to draw properly in Photoshop. Like for me the movement is just less natural than on the paper. So if you are really like used to drawing on the paper, drawing in Photoshop may be a bit harder for you, because I don't know, for me it's like I feel kind of restricted because I'm not really like following my hand. But yeah, that's pretty much all you can say. And for the photos, for the reference that I have in here, I will also prepare like a reference for the light. So as previously was done in the previous videos, I will need to have adjustments. Let's dock it in here. So I will choose a threshold for the reference. So as you can see, it's clipped to this photo. If I press Alt and move the cursor in between, I can release it and I can clip it to this layer. And with the slider, I can move it to the place where I think the tank looks best. So I think something like here, in my opinion, looks best. So now I can like pretty much just try to ink it. So now is the part where I am like reworking all the things that is going to make this tank look nice. So even if you are painting, if you are going to paint it later, this is pretty much exactly the way we like to look at the things, because the human eye prefers to see the shapes instead of like lines. So it's easier for us to understand things because we see the shapes. This is also the reason why you don't really need that many like informations for your brain to like see a face somewhere, because we can like understand a certain shape and we can associate it with like certain thing. So yeah, that's pretty much all. And also, the more you will study something like stuff like this, the more like cool shapes you will have like remembered. So later, if you are going to draw something, most likely you are going to produce some cooler looking shapes. So yeah, and also as you can see, this is not really like a taxing drawing. Like this is a tank drawing, not a taxi drawing, but it's not a taxing drawing. I made a joke. I'm proud of myself. So I also don't want to stress about it that much. I just want it to kinda appear quickly. So if I like fully focus on it and just try to draw it, to just chill with it, I guess something like this will take me like 30 minutes or something like this. So if you are going to like spend a whole day drawing tanks and everything, and as I said, it's a really cool exercise, then you can like produce quite a lot of work like in a single day. And even if you are going to to make a concept of it, like to design a tank or something like this, even using this method will also work, because as you can see, the tank on the left looks kind of cool with this type of a light, and later you can only fill it with like colors and whatnot, and it will make everything look kind of cool. For the filling, all the black spaces, I'm not trying to be a perfect with it, so I'm leaving some like blank spaces between some lines. I like this effect of the dots like appearing between like brush strokes. And as I said, in my case the angle is a little bit like lighter, but I don't really care about it that much. I can add some simple shading with some lines to add a little bit more character to it. And also remember about the eraser. If you are inking, especially in Photoshop, you can pretty much just remove the inks, like just erase them. So you might get this like really nice sharp looking details on the painting actually. So sometimes I will like paint on top of everything just to later erase a small fragment, small portion of the ink. So I will get this really crisp looking like shadows and shapes and everything. And this is what really makes a lot of cool things happen, because you can like suggest a really small intricate details in some places just by like pressing the eraser where it needs to be. And for other things, I bought myself a new intro logo, so the new video that I will soon upload, because I only need to like edit it, and I was also waiting for the logo to come here. The next video will have like a new intro, so I'm really happy for it because it's a really cool looking intro. It's kind of like the evolution of the previous intro, so if anyone got blasted with the intro being too loud in like any of my videos, the new one is a little bit calmer, but it probably will also be kind of loud, so I guess you will see for yourself. I wanted to have it like for the stream so I could show it in here, but I did not make a render in time, so it's not at the moment available. And for the wheels, as you can see, are really cool shapes in here. Like, it's a really nice thing to include in the painting. Later I will like also connect the line work with the painting, like with the inking, so I can erase some of the like whiter lines, like some of the lines, so some places will like even be a bit more bright than they need to be, like kind of like overexposed. But yeah, this is more or less how I'm going to do everything in here. Also adding some textures in inks. This is also a really cool thing to do. It simply looks cool. As you can see, it is as simple as that. Just fill out it with black. Whoops. And also while working on the wheels, now I can kind of simulate the thing, like add this slight change to the side of the wheels by just transforming it slightly so the wheel in the background actually is a bit smaller. It's not like a really strong difference, but if you are like going to draw a lot of wheels, it will be noticeable. So this type of small details will actually do the job, while if you are going for like a nice looking thing. Also, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this in all black, because I kind of felt my ability to simplify shapes is kind of lacking, like lagging behind. So I also wanted to study a bit more of like this graphic design type of read, because simply it will like make it easier for me for like drawing some things. A friend of mine, Karel, I have no idea how to pronounce his surname, so I'm not going to. He is kind of like, he kind of mastered the art of like shape making, and he is like able to produce like a beautiful paintings in like 30 minutes or something like this, all because like he is extremely like efficient with like the shapes and everything. So I'm always blown away by the quality of the works he's producing and the time he's producing them, because for something that I will spend like 2 or 3 hours on, he is able to do it in like 30 minutes or something like this. So this is a really crazy type of speed. Adding some things in here. And I always wanted to do like learn how to like work quicker and how to paint quicker. So I think it is like a good way to approach it. I will start with the basics, like some simple vehicles, and then I will like try to make the themes more complex. So maybe drawing some portraits with this type of a technique, maybe like doing some actual concept art using this technique. Actually, I'm using quite a lot, like a silhouettes for the concept art, but this is a little bit more complex, I guess, than just making some silhouettes, which is nice. I really like having a small challenge. So maybe I will try to make in the future some concepts for some sort of a like imaginary comic book or something like this, where everything will be like black and white. It will also be like a really cool challenge. And also this is a cool idea if you are like struggling with what to draw, if you don't really know what you want to practice and how you should practice it, just try to like think about the problem that you want to solve. So instead of like wondering if you should draw hands or legs or whatever, just try to like pinpoint what problem you want to solve. So for example, you want to get quicker with drawing, so maybe try like drawing quicker. Just have an idea what you need to practice. It kind of does not make sense in the way I explained it, but if you don't know what to draw, just try to sit for like an hour instead of like trying to draw, like force drawing, and just think about the things that you might actually draw and that you will most likely enjoy. Because like drawing this type of stuff, especially geometry, might not be really interesting for someone who is a beginner, but if you approach it in a way it will be interesting for you, then most likely it will be interesting for you. So if you don't like drawing tanks because of reasons, maybe you enjoy drawing insects, so just try to draw some insects like using this method. And if you don't like drawing insects, maybe just try drawing humans, and if you find like humans too hard, maybe just try drawing some mannequins, like simplified human silhouettes. Usually like vast majority of problems can be solved by just sitting and thinking a bit about the problem. And also this is one of the reasons why recently, like in the past 2 or 3 years, I started enjoying drawing way more and just like pretty much learning way more because like I stopped like caring, like really taking care of everything that I do. I just kind of wanted to draw for the sake of drawing. And when I kind of chilled out with the drawings, like with the quality, just trying to draw for fun, then it started getting way easier for me how to draw. But yeah, but this type of things like the tanks, this is like the really core skill, like the geometry, the perspective, the shapes. This is like the core skill you really need to have if you want to kind of be an artist or a designer or someone like creative, like working or just being in the field of like concept art or like games or movies or everything. So this is like the core thing that you really need to practice. And it won't be easy. It will take like a lot of different years, like a lot of years and a lot of different like drawings and failures and everything. But in the end, in my opinion, it's really worth it because you will be like making commissions with monsters and everything. So basically, you will earn hopefully a living with drawing monsters and whatnot. So yeah, I think like the basic idea of drawing monsters for a living is already a great argument to like learn how to draw and how to paint because I have a hard time like imagining a better work to have. Like it is a hard work, but it's extremely rewarding in the end of everything. So yeah. And as I said, if anyone has any questions, just ask them in the comments. It will also be easier for me to talk about some things because I guess I can like invent like topics for like maybe 1 hour, but later I will just run out of topics. So the more you will comment, the more you will ask, even the dumb questions, the easier for me it will be to like tell something. So please ask me something. But yeah. And as you can see also the tank slowly starting to like gets its shape. And this is like the process you cannot really speed up because it will just take time. If you want to make something look good, it will simply take time to make it look good. It won't be the easiest thing on earth to make. And at some point you can also like stop caring about the reference, like for the thing that you have in here. Like the more you will do this type of things, the better you will understand what is actually happening and how you want to approach like drawing everything. So yeah, but that's also a quite obvious thing. Like the more you will do, the better you will get at it. So yeah, trying to add some details to it, some thickness. And I really like this effect that is happening on the cannon with like this raster type of texture, like with this texture happening in here, because this is like not a perfect cylinder. It's kind of like rough and it has kind of like a jagged texture, I can imagine. So the light is like not perfectly shown on it. It kind of like doing this type of a texture will add a really nice and believable things to it. So later if you paint something from the imagination, like adding this all the small details combined together will make your painting way better. So yeah. Also this method is like widely used as far as I know by a lot of different artists because like I really often see some artists like working mainly with the shapes and with the shadows and later only adding some like simple textures and some simple like colors to it, And with like a really basic like rendering skills, it allows you to create like the whole artwork pretty much in no time. So this is like one of the cooler techniques that I recently stumbled upon. Like I know it for like quite some time already, but I have never practiced it that much. Also, inking is fun. If you will ever like try to ink in Photoshop, also try to do it in the on the paper with some pens and some markers and whatnot, because I think this technique is really cool when you actually try to do it with traditional medias. This is like where the fun really begins. In the Photoshop it's also fun, but like the fact you can like rework everything, like there's pretty much no possible way for you to make a mistake. Like you can always like erase it and rework it. Kinda takes a bit of fun away. So while doing this type of things traditionally, you really need to be way more like, you need to care way more about the things that you are going to do. Like you need to think a bit more, because this is the stage where I can combine the layers. I mostly wanted to erase it in here, so it will start glowing a bit more, and adding some textures in here and in here. And it slowly will look okay. This is a really cool pattern happening in here, like for all the squares or like shields. So this is definitely a shape worth remembering. But yeah, I guess if I were to make a study, like just for myself, as I'm pretty much doing right now, for this guy, I will call it quit. I don't think I would like work on it more. I think it's more than enough to call like a finished study. So yeah, I guess the first one is done. So let's erase this one. Let's move this to the side. Whoops. Let's go in there. And the first tank is ready. So I will try to quickly find a photo from the top of some sort of a tank. So basically I will search for some sort of a toy, because it's way easier to find a photo from the top of a toy instead of like a real tank. So maybe this one looks kind of funny. So yeah, here we have the kind of odd looking tank, but the wheels are really cool. I have never seen such wheels before. So yeah. So okay, so the things that are also quite easy to do when you are drawing a tank from the top is to start thinking about what you are going to draw. So for example, if you are not sure what you are going to draw, just try to connect the middle points of the tank, and what it most likely will give you is the general shape of the tank you are going to draw. So for example, this is like a cross section for it. If we were to like cut the body in half, then most likely we will get a shape like this. And if we were to cut like the top part in the it will go in here. In the perspective, we will get a shape like this because the top is rotated. So yeah, that's pretty much all. As you can see, this is pretty much drawing boxes all over again, just like rounding them in here, but everything that is happening in this tank is pretty much the boxes all over again. So the most basic topic, just redone and redone and redone. And the only thing that you really need to remember, if you are like drawing a tank from the top, that this is the thing that is set in the perspective. So you need to like be aware of the actual perspective happening in here. So let's place this guy in here, and just for the sake of practice, instead of like drawing him, like making a carbon copy of it, I will try to like draw it with, well, it's mirrored, so I will need to think a bit more about the things that I am doing. But as you can see, I can start pretty much exactly the same. I will just copy the shape, like the cross section shape of it, and we'll try to draw it by using cross sections. Yeah, thanks. I hope soon I will be able to do it. I have the general idea on how I want to draw it, how I want to present it, but I guess I will need to like make some presentations also for it. So I will need to create some PDFs and everything, so the whole thing will be presented in a bit nicer manner. But yeah, that's pretty much all. And for the side, as you can see, this line is not really like proper, because it goes like to the perspective for the whole thing in here, and then it slides down. So the cross section is a bit different. It looks a little bit more like this. And then in here, it will go a bit more like this, and this will go a bit more like this. And yeah. And while drawing like tanks, I can imagine, like I'm kind of sure, like this is the easiest thing to practice, like the basic shapes and the geometry, because like really rarely you will find a shape in the tank that's really hard to understand. So for example, in here, something like tricky is happening maybe in here, because like you have all the changes in the planes like everywhere, but that's pretty much all. It's like connecting the dots. So for example, if you will have like a point, like drawing this type of a geometry is pretty much connecting the dots. So one of the things that you can also do to understand this type of things a little bit better is to actually play with the tank, with like things like this, with toys. So basically by touching, you will understand the shape of it in a better manner, I strongly believe. So like building something like a really simple tank with Legos or something like this might actually be a good idea to learn how to draw a tank, because like you'll pretty much understand the shapes in a bit better manner. The only thing that is kinda like not intuitive is happening in here, because you have like a kind of weird change of plan, because you have something like this, then you have like the front of the tank, and this part in here is like a triangle going to the front. So this geometry might be not that obvious, and I will kind of draw it in the same way instead of like cutting it. So sometimes you might need to like analyze the thing that you are going to draw a little bit more, because even as I said, the tanks are not that complex, but this type of places might get a bit wonky, like quite fast. So a bit shorter, not a fan this line. Also for this guy I'm trying to not use like the shift too much, so I will simply practice. Pretty much I will simply practice drawing. So the whole sketch will be a bit looser. And if, for example, you're like not really sure about the geometry that is happening in here, also as you can see, my tank is quite rotated. Like if we compare the things to the one on the left, it kind of proves the point that you don't really need to copy like everything. Then, for example, just like return it like to the similar setup, and now as you can see, it's way easier to understand that this thing is connecting. This thing is connecting in here, like making the back part a little bit broader, and this thing is connecting in here. So now I can do, well, not this point. I can do all of this like without any problems, and this part will be in here, like will be missing. So if you are struggling with something, just remember to make your life a bit easier. It's good if it's hard to draw, because it means you are learning something, but you don't really always need to like prove to yourself that you can do everything. Sometimes you will like have a problem that you will like struggle to resolve. So yeah. And the really tricky part with this one, like you can eyeball it a bit, but it will be a bit better in my opinion if you like construct everything properly, is the top part that is rotated on the tank, because pretty much always the rotation is a thing that is kind of hard to do, because it's really hard to like maintain the distance between vanishing points. So for example, the easiest way to approach it is to start with the ellipse. So if you have like a circle and you will draw a square that is tangent in the 4 places to the circle, if you were to rotate the square, like the tangency points, then you can pretty much do the exactly same things on like on the in the perspective, like on the square. Like you can rotate it around like the ellipse. So if you have like an ellipse placed like this, and you will draw all the lines in a way they will be like tangent to the ellipse, then you can like, for example, use the, I don't remember how this line was called, the line in the middle, like going from this point to this point, as the new direction for your plane. So in here I could draw like an ellipse, and I should, but I could also eyeball it. The problem with like adding the ellipse to the drawing is you always like you also need to eyeball the angle of the ellipse. So you need to decide if you want to draw it, like it kind of takes the experience. Like you need to draw it a lot of times to like be able to say this ellipse will look more or less like this. So in my case, this ellipse will most likely look more or less like this. It should also be a little more to the top. So I want this point to be a little bit more in the middle. Now I also kind of see like that this line should be a bit closer. So yeah, so now if I have the ellipse, I can like simply draw a square on it, and it will kind of guide the perspective for me. So it will be a bit easier for me to draw everything. And if I want to make it slightly bigger, I will just simply offset it, so I don't really need to draw a bigger ellipse. It's simply pretty much be like, if I have a square, then if I will like draw these lines, I can like offset the same line around, and the offset will be like uniform around everything. So for this guy, since it will be like rounded I will pretty much draw the shape on the bottom. Like round it in here. This line will go to that vanishing point. And geometry here will go like this. Perpendicular here. In here. And the beauty of the Photoshop, if it's too small, then I can select it and just make it a bit bigger. So for a sketch like this, it won't really matter. Like I can always erase the parts in the inside, so it will look kind of okay. It's not the cleanest example, but it gets the work done. And this is more than enough for me in this case. Always only remember to remember about the perspective, so all the lines will be going in the right directions. So for example, with the Canon, I can like draw a line in here. It's kind of short, so I can like point it to the side, and this will be like the controlled angle of the actual Canon. It's kind of cute being that short. So yeah, mine is a bit thicker, but and this part in the front is a bit smaller, but I don't really care that much. And this is like one way to draw this type of a guy. For example, if I were to like draw it in a different manner, most likely I will start with some sort of an ellipse. And then like the other way is to, for example, include the cross section. So if it will be rotated, then firstly I draw a cross section like line. Then I will add perspective in here, perspective in here, and then I will like close the shape from the top and from the second part. I kind of eyeball the curves, but it gets the work done. And in here the thing is rounded, so everything that is happening in here is also getting rounded. And then you have this thingy that is inside. And the cross section in here will look like this, more or less. So yeah, not the nicest drawing, but as I said, as long as it gets the job done, it's fine. The thing that might be a bit problematic is to draw everything that is happening in here. So basically, as far as I can see, it's like a 3 segments. So this is pretty much a 3 segments. This one is touching the wheel. So I will simply try to like emulate the shapes, because I am drawing in the 2-point perspective, like the verticals are vertical. Then I will simply like try to divide it into the 3 segments as I see in the reference. I guess I will make it a bit shorter, like to not make it that tall. And then the thing that I need to match is the ellipse angle. So I only need to remember the short axis will lead will need to match like the actual perspective. So if the short axis is matching the perspective, then it's pretty much fine. Of course, also the ellipse could be like thicker, so it could be like this thin or like this, and still the short axis will match the drawing. But pretty much this is the part where the experience kind of takes over. So if you will like draw it 10,000 times, you will kind of more or less have the general idea how this ellipse should look like. And the easiest way to like verify it, if you like have drawn it properly, is if it does not look like correct for you, most likely it is not correct. So just redo it as many times as needed, as like to the point where you can say it looks fine for you. And also drawing ellipses is just hard, so like keep this in mind. This is not like the easiest thing to do. And just to make life a bit more easier for me, I will add some like help lines for the tank. And I could also use a trick, so I could like draw this type of a shape like in a flat manner. So let's say, let's copy it 4 times, 2 times actually. So I will have like the basic shape in here, and I could like transform it and like match it to the perspective. Also, this is pretty much like the bulletproof way to see how the ellipses should look like. But since I want to like practice drawing a bit more instead of like using tricks in the Photoshop, I will just simply try to like draw it by hand. And also by drawing this type of things by hand, I kind of feel like the quality, like overall the quality is a bit nicer. And now I also noticed it's not like the 4 wheels, so simply it will look a bit better. Because also I can interpret the shapes that are happening in here. So in my opinion, it only adds to the general quality of the painting, or of the painting or of the drawing. So I could like duplicate it 4 times, and most likely I will do, because I want this shape to be quite uniform. Because I have drawn it like once, so once is enough. And now I kinda only need to adjust it to the perspective that I have in here. So the more on right it is, the more skewed it is. So drawn once, and it's enough. And now time to adjust it slightly. And because I know I will like pretty heavily like ink this area, I don't really care about the quality of all the ellipses in here, because I don't really need to. So yeah, now I am only missing the wheel in the pack. The pack was looking kinda short. And now it kind of works like this. So if you need to have a middle of something, just draw an X. Also, it will allow to quickly verify for you if everything that you have drawn is okay. So for example, for all the details that are happening in here, I can like simply make a line to help myself to draw them, and more or less add the shape in here. And I see this shape is not really proper now. It's a little bit too aggressive, so a bit more space in here. And if I change this angle will also change slightly. It will go more or less like this. And I know this is a toy, but it is the first time ever I see actually spare wheels. I don't know if this is a thing for the tanks. I never seen any tank with spare wheels on it before, so it is definitely a thing worth checking later. So I guess this will be my homework, to just see if the tanks actually have spare wheels on them, like mounted. And here is the... It will be a bit thicker. And the machine gun. And all the small ellipses. This is also a really good exercise to just try to draw ellipses on the surfaces that you already have like placed in the perspective, because it kind of forces you to like analyze what actually you have done in the drawing. So you kind of need to think for a moment if this looks correct, and if it does not look correct, then what actually is not like looking correct. in this rank. And for the surfaces that, like here, that are more like not vertical or horizontal, it's always a nice idea to add some sort of like cross section. So like this line will kind of guide the viewer and help him understand what is actually happening on in there. So yeah. And I guess this guy's is close to be finished. Now I only need to like add some things to it. And because I'm like viewing this tank a little bit more from the top, and the view of my tank is like the camera is placed a bit differently, this is also the reason why this area looks kind of like empty in my case, because basically if I'm trying to look at it like from the side, it would look like this, but my camera is like placed. This is an ugly ass camera. Yeah, my camera is pretty much placed like this, so this line pretty much foreshortens completely. Like for me, it like just did not exist there. So this is the reason why I don't see it. And yeah, and I guess I will try to do the inking like from the imagination, so I won't have like the visual cue, like the visual reference made out of like the photo. So I will see how far away I will be like with my guesses. This is also a really neat thing to do. If you are like learning something, just always try to redo it from the imagination. You will actually see what your brain understood and what you remembered, what pretty much is still a mystery for you. So always try to verify your knowledge, because like copying from somewhere is a one thing, and of course it is a really like good exercise, but actually verifying it, this is the whole different story. This is actually where like the magic happens. If you will understand it and if you will like make it look okay, then it's really most likely a fine thing. Fine thing. Mm-mm. And I really like the pattern of this thing. This, like, I have no idea how it's called. It looks really cool, especially if you are like designing a tank. This is like one of the things that you can really like take a special care of, because for example, if you were to design a tank that is going to like ride on top of a snow or something like this, it might have like a different, like I don't know, a chain, something like this. I need to see how it is called. It says it's tank caterpillar, but I don't think it's like a tank caterpillar. Tank truck. So I guess these are the trucks. So you can like design a really cool looking truck that will like fit the area the tank is going to like run right on top of. So I don't really want to like talk that much about the concept art and design like at the moment, because this is like more most likely a study video, but just keep it in mind. All the small things that you can find while studying are worth noting, because they will like later do the difference if you have like an interesting concepts, or if you don't have interesting concepts. So yeah, I still think a little bit too much light is happening in here, so a bit more things most likely will be in the shadow. And for the pattern, go black with it, and then remove it. So again, I'm suggesting the detail. I'm not like drawing it perfectly. Only in here, I would like to like really remove it so it looks like it. It's nicely done. And also while inking, yeah, you can pretty much like redo a lot of different things that are happening in your painting, because like you can pretty much like sculpt the shapes in the geometry that you already have on top of like everything. So you don't really need to stay that true to the lines that you are using. You can like play a little bit more with the thing that you are like drawing. And in here, the thing I had last time, especially all the small details, will be really neat looking if you are like drawing all the small like dots of blackness on top of the surfaces, because like a lot of those details that are happening in here are kind of flat. They are like not really flashy. They don't like catch that much of a shadow and light. Like they don't catch a lot of light and they don't produce a lot of shadow because of it. But it's always nice to experiment a bit more how you should show some details on top of it. I kind of wonder how like the threshold will make look like this reference, since it's kind of weirdly lit, because like there are several light sources, like at least two, because you can see the light happening in here and in here. So most likely it's two lamps like are lighting up this tank. So I'm kind of wondering how it will look like in the black and white. And for all the details like the stars and everything, I will just like, I won't really care about it that much. Maybe if I were to paint it like completely from scratch, maybe then I will care about it, but now it does not really matter. I will add a shadow to it, kind of like if the light is from the top. It will also nicely cut out the whole tank, like place the whole tank on the ground. So it might look a bit, we don't want to do this. Connect. And if something is really like hard for you to see, for example in here, it's kind of hard to see what is happening, I will kind of just erase some lines that are happening inside the geometry, so everything will be a bit cleaner. So like a really huge part of a drawing will be the line quality. So for example, this is also one of the things that's really often students that I teach and Dominik Gdańsk are doing, is like not really caring about the line weight. So for example, if I were to draw, let's say something like this, like a really simple box, it does not even need to be like even. It can be ugly, but just to prove the point, if we were to like duplicate it 3 times, if we do something like this, then you can kind of read like the box without any problems. Maybe this line could be a bit thicker because it's the front. But yeah, pretty much it's really easy to understand what you are looking at. But I need to move this one a bit away. But if you were to do, like if you were to like not really care about the line weight, and if you will do something like, let's say like this, then even if you will draw something properly, most likely it will like completely mess up the readability of your drawing. So if you do something like this, if you really won't care about the lines, as you can see, it's kind of hard to understand what is going on. And sometimes the students that are drawing will kind of mistake the back with the front and will do something like this. And then what is really hard about it is, like, you know what you are looking at, and it kind of looks proper, but something is really odd with it. So as you can see, this one is even hard to draw because it's kind of like messing with the eyes too much. It kind of looks like it's turned inside out. So if you are drawing, just keep it in mind that the line weight really matters. It will make a difference if you are doing some tanks. So if the line is in the line of shadow, then just add the line there. It will like make a huge difference for you. Okay, I kind of want to see because how it will look as a threshold. It looks ugly as hell. Maybe something like this kind of make sense, but I don't really like how the top part is looking. So the only thing that really looks cool are the shapes in here, like the things with the wheels. I completely butchered it. Like mine looks really not finished, so I guess I will need to like clean it up a little bit more to have a stronger shape for the wheels and for the things that are happening here. But yeah, the shape on the side is extremely cool. I need a little bit more sharpness added to it. I kind of tried to add too many small shapes to like have a good effect, but in the end I kind of lost the readability of the wheels. So this is also a really valuable thing. Just verify the things that you are doing. Like if you are learning, you have rights to make mistakes, so just make as many mistakes as you need. And the thing that I really like is like making this side black, actually, like almost black. With this edge like shining in here. I really like the way this edge is like glowing. Kind of nicely showing the dimension of everything. But I think I will leave the light on this box from the front, not from the back, because in here it kind of looks like it's like pushed in the geometry instead of like pushed out of the geometry. And the whole line in here should be a bit sharper. The things that are happening in here are kind of wild. Like the whole top part is kind of wild looking. I kind of forgot about this hatch in here, like protruding out. So I don't know if I should like cover this area black. I guess I will do. Also, this is like another cool thing in the Photoshop. If you are not sure if you should do something, just do it like on a copy. Like in here, I won't do any copies, but you can pretty much like test every single solution of every single thing that you have in here without any problems at all. So all the things that are going on in here are quite cool. And also, if you are like watching maybe this video like later in the future or something like this, feel free also to mute me and just draw alongside. I was reading some like tips and tricks for live streaming, and one of the tricks that they were talking about was to never like pretty much shut up, to like always talk. And even when I'm drawing like just for myself, like sitting in my house and just drawing, I often like talk to myself, like kind of what I am doing, or I make some noises and everything of the things that I'm currently painting, because it kind of allows me to go a little bit more with the vibe, kind of makes the painting a little bit more like joyful and cheerful. So, but I also can remember, like, understand if someone is drawing and someone is constantly talking, that it might be a bit distracting. So you won't hurt my feelings if you mute me. But yeah. Also, what is like a really hard part of like streaming art is like sometimes it really requires a lot of focus. And this is also one of the reasons that I kind of think the streamers that are like streaming games have it a bit easier. Like it's still a really taxing type of thing to just constantly talk for like 8 hours or something like this. But like the ability to draw and talk at the same time is really hard. Like when I was doing all the art talks and everything, I was not really expecting it to be that hard to talk and draw in the same time. And I guess it's also the thing that really needs a lot of practice. I guess I will call this guy done. Like I don't really like the way he turned out. It looks kinda like forced in my opinion. Maybe if I will duplicate it, slightly better. But he looks kinda odd. I don't really like this one. I guess the reference is a bit better, but well. The part of learning is failing a lot, so you will go in here. You will go in here. And I guess I will draw the last one. And I kinda feel like I'm talking through the nose. I don't know why, but my nose is kinda runny at the moment, so I want this guy or this guy. Yeah, this guy. So something a bit easier. This time, instead of like drawing everything like from the scratch, like starting with all the geometry, I will try to like start with all the shapes. So we will see how it will look like. So this time I'm trying to make kind of like a copy, like the study of shapes, just to eyeball everything. So there will be like no lines in it. It will only like contain shapes, but I want to see how it will turn out. This is also a nice thing if you are like drawing anything for yourself, just experiment, like see what happens if something. Maybe it will turn out, my brain will understand drawing tanks better this way instead of like, but it already do not. Okay, so I will kind of cheat a bit. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this should be taller and a bit bigger. So it's kind of cheating. I'm kind of like drawing the wheels. Okay. And I can imagine doing like the whole tank this way can be a really beneficial thing to do, because later if you were to like sketch something and you don't really need to like have a perspective grid or anything, it might be a really game changer for the speed that you will be working like while drawing something. So maybe I will include this type of like a this type of an exercise, like in a daily basis. So the small details. Usually I highly suggest you to work from like the overall to the detail, but since I'm experimenting in here, let's just go like a printer from the detail to the detail. And also this is the nice thing, as I said, about this type of photos. You don't really need to care about the perspective almost at all, because it's like so flat, everything is horizontal. We will see how it will look like. I will add this shape. But even though I'm still like drawing it in like using only shapes, mainly shapes, I still try to remember about the perspective and everything. I'm not like abandoning perspective. I'm still trying to maintain at least the basic like geometry of it. So even though I have not like I was not like drawing the geometry on the front, I still try to remember it is in there. So I guess the whole area in here will be in shadow. I want to leave some edges in the front. Just mark it that it is in here. I have no idea what this is. It kind of looks like yeah, these are lights. This is a really nice light designs. And yeah, so let's go through here. Black line in here, black line in here, and here I will be pretty much starting to draw a body of a tank. A really flat looking tank. So this geometry goes like this. The cylinder will be extremely tricky to draw. Just go something like this, and it will be thicker in one area and thinner in the other. And texture for it. Drawing this way is a little bit less enjoyable, I guess. Like, I guess drawing the geometry first and then adding like all the inking is were more interesting for me, because now I'm like I miss all the lines a lot. It's a little bit more too rough. Maybe as a tank in a background of some sort, maybe it will do the trick, but at the moment I'm not really feeling this sketch. And the thing in here, like paint black. Then I will try to remove it. Oh, this is annoying. And it does not look good at all, this part. It kind of change the shape. Now it looks a bit better. And even if you're like drawing something and you really struggle how to interpret a shape, like certain shape, because like some things just will look weird and will have like a really weird shape, like you don't really need to know how everything looks like, then just simply try to squint your eyes and see the general, like not yeah, pretty much see the shape and try to like copy the shape that you are seeing when you are like squinting on something, because this is pretty much the thing, like in its most like basic form. So if you squint at something, it will simply make it will be easier for you to understand what shape you are looking at, because you are not really distracted then by all the details and everything around. My cannon is a bit too low. So you can also notice like a lot of plenar artists, when they are drawing, they're like sitting and squinting their eyes all the time, and it kind of looks like they have bad eyes, but they just try to like see the general thing instead of like all of the details. Yep. This tank does not look good at all. The shadow. I am missing all the meat that the lines provide when you are drawing with the lines. Try to texture it a bit more with some like thin lines happening in here. When I was like reading back in the day some things about the tanks, when I was like doing my diploma, I also read all the nets and like the squares, the small squares are there to just protect the tank from some explosives. So pretty much if the rocket or some sort of an explosive will hit the tank, and if it will hit the net, the main explosion will like the main impact will be on the net instead of like on the side of a tank. So it actually increases the durability, like the survivability of a tank, like quite a lot. Survivability, something along these lines. The tank can take more hits and it won't break. But yeah. So also if you're like drawing tanks or anything that is like military type of related, just maybe read some things about the technology, because you might find something interesting. And in here, do the solar panels. I guess it's some sort of a solar panels. Just because it's like this really nice looking flat piece of a geometry. And sometimes if you are like sketching something, adding something like really sharp and extremely even will make the whole drawing look way better. So now it's kind of like even too perfect. Looking for the whole thing. And the shadow on the ground, because the tank needs a shadow. It's definitely not my favorite sketch, but it's not that bad. I don't like it, but there could be something. Yeah, so I guess for today it will be all. Like, I guess almost 2 hours or something like this. Yeah, almost 2 hours. So I think 3 tanks for like almost 2 hours. is quite a nice amount of tanks. Maybe I could do a bit more, but go out. But there are some tanks. And I guess I will like do 1 or 2 more streams with some vehicles, so I will fill out the whole sheet a bit more. I guess most likely I will do some tanks, maybe some helicopters or some planes or something like this, just to touch some different themes. But later the file, the PSD, if anyone would need it, will be uploaded in the description, so just remember to follow it. And thanks anyone for tuning in to the stream. And yeah, that's pretty much all. If you have any questions or something like this, just feel free to ask. I will try to answer everything. So yeah, that's pretty much all. And I guess this will be the end of the stream. So subscribe and whatever and whatnot, and have a good night. And